The waste of the week goes to government agencies for the trillions of taxpayer money, your money, wasted during the end of the year spending spree. Joining us right now, the founder and CEO of OpenTheBooks.com, Adam Andrzejewski. Adam, happy Friday. Good morning to you.
Happy Friday, Jan.
Since 2019, Iowa Senator Joni Ernst has been working to put an end to all this wasteful government spending, and she's actually proposed capping agency spending during the last 2 months at the same rate of the beginning 10 months of the year. Not a bad idea, but let's set the table here, Adam, and talk about why this is so important because of what we're seeing happening every year during this time.
Well, Jan, you make it, they take it. What we're talking about here is a phenomenon that happens at the end of the fiscal year, every single year in the federal agencies, where the agencies spend down their budgets this year to make sure they'll get the same amount or more from Congress next year. Now, our organization at OpenTheBooks.com has studied this phenomenon for the last couple of years. And incredibly, in the last week of the federal fiscal year, 1 out of every 10 contracts is spent. So 1 out of every 10 contracts goes out the door in the last week. It's a tremendous amount of money. We found, for instance, at the Department of Defense, that they spent in years past $1 million on PBR. That's the Professional Bull Riders Association. They've spent $9,000 on a club leather chair and up to $5 million on lobster tail and snow crab.
And that's just one agency, and we're talking $1 trillion total here is what you guys were looking at. Also, tell us about the Health and Human Services spending.
Well, this year, we noticed that Congress allocated $2.8 trillion to Health and Human Services. Up through the first 10 months of the year, they'd only spent $1.8 trillion. It's hard to spend $1 trillion in the last 2 months of the fiscal year. In August and September, the federal fiscal year actually ends on September 30th every single year. So Senator Ernst has this great reform piece of legislation, and it says you couldn't spend more in the final 2 months of the year than what you'd spent on average for the previous 10 months. That applied to HHS this year would have saved over $600 billion.
You know what's interesting is that seems like a common sense approach there. What has been the response over the years to this proposal? What stopped this from getting passed?
Well, incredibly, there's 50 Republicans, 50 Democrats in the United States Senate, and nobody wants to talk about spending reforms. All of the good ideas with the pandemic went out the door. And so, look, right now we're debating the debt ceiling increase. Right. And Senator Ernst's proposal should be attached to any increase in the debt ceiling. This is common sense reform.
We need a spending ceiling is what we need at this point, it looks like, right? Are any other lawmakers bringing attention to the overspending of government agencies, and why has this been allowed to go on for so long?
Well, you've got West Virginia U.S. Senator Joe Manchin, and he's called for a strategic pause on spending, and that's a good idea. Now, at OpenTheBooks.com, we call for a war on waste. And Jan, it's a target-rich environment. You got the Pentagon in years past. They were paying $1,200 per coffee cup for their fighter pilots. They'd spent $300,000 before we showcased this and got that program stopped. So it's a target-rich environment to go after waste. 42% of spending the American people think is wasted at the federal level. And so lawmakers need to get to work.
Yeah, and this is all taxpayer dollars we're talking about, too. This is what is coming out of our pockets. That's what makes this so very important. Adam Andrzejewski, always great to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Jan.